In the world of Roadwarden, mystical energies compose both the universe of the world itself and form the basics of its magical system which the player encounters. The magical system in Roadwarden is called Pneuma. In the Journal of the Roadwarden Glossary, regarding soul, shell, and Pneuma, it writes, "The people of the land see a correlation between magic and breath. They describe all living creatures as empty shells filled with Pneuma, the life force sustained by breathing. They believe that creatures who use magic do so because of their souls, a unique identity held in their shells, which turns Pneuma into something greater. That's why almost the entirety of magic is used through speech and breathing. Thus, all living creatures use Pneuma, but only a few are the soul carriers. Humans and spirits, such as the deities living in the forest, demons, are gods. It's not clear why some humans can cast spells by gestures alone, about why animals don't rise as the undead, or why a small number of humans can't use magic at all, while the others have unusual talents. I believe that this system complements Stoic physics, or at the very least shares some similarities with it. The Stoics, as many are aware, were a group of ancient philosophers who advocated for the removal of harmful emotions known as pathos. What is less commonly known is that the Stoics had an entire cosmological system in place, in which these beliefs were rooted and which served to explain the world around them. To the Stoics, Pneuma, also known as breath or divine fire, was seen as a generative force, something which brings about something. It was seen as the creative force in Stoic philosophy. It can be found in all things, living and non-living, as a binding force which keeps an object existing as an object, much like certain atoms and bonds serve to keep an object whole. To the Stoics, there were two types of Pneuma, active and passive. Active Pneuma was what brought about and maintained living things, as well as reasoning things. Passive Pneuma was the foundation of matter and the various elements, such as earth, air, fire, and water. As mentioned previously, active Pneuma is the animating force in living things, as well as the source of sentience or sapience for intelligent life. Reason and life to the Stoics came about as a sort of pulsating and fluctuating tension within a specialized and rarefied type of Pneuma, which generates certain abilities such as the ability to think. Without going into too much detail, this does suggest that certain things we don't usually associate with being sentient could in fact become sentient if it were to come into possession of this type of Pneuma. The acts that my character possesses could in fact have an opinion on the various enemies I cut in twain, if by chance it possessed rarefied Pneuma. In the glossary entry on fogs, it notes, "Fogs appear in every season aside from spring, but the majority of them occur in autumn. They are feared and hated by the Northerners, since whenever they touch a dead human shell, they awaken it. It's unknown why this happens or why it doesn't affect animal carcasses, but the common understanding is that the fog itself contains dense Pneuma, which then spontaneously fills an empty human shell, replacing one's soul. Humans can replicate this effect thanks to the forbidden art of necromancy. Fogs also increase the potential spellcasters. The fog is power, the tablets say, and while most people stay inside their homes while it's around, it makes casting spells easier by supplying wizards with Pneuma. During foggy days, magical potions are easier to brew, golems act faster, and the blood magic becomes less demanding. Returning to Roadwarden, at the very least we can see how the Stoic system might work. If we assume that death results in the extinction or cessation of that generative force, the fog that seems to resurrect the undead in that world either restarts the engine, much like putting coal into a furnace where a dying flame is still present, or rarefies an aspect of the Pneuma enough to allow for rudimentary reasoning and animation of that being. This would explain how, once enough Pneuma is accumulated, speech and higher functions become available to the undead, as opposed to pure instinct. In Roadwarden, this fog would almost literally refer to breath in instances like this, breathing life into the life deprived. Likewise, access to a certain level of rarefied Pneuma might explain why certain humans are able to use magic, while a few are not. They have access to all the faculties that we would consider to be appropriate for a human, coming up just short in the rarefication required for magical aptitude. Taken from the Roadwarden bestiary entry on the undead. Any breathless human shell touched by fog or by a spell of a necromancer wakes up as a bloodthirsty beast. They seek Pneuma to grow stronger, may it be waiting for other foggy days or by collecting it from the dead. The more magic fills their new form, the greater their intellect and capabilities. They start using weapons, mechanisms, tools, even magic, and start to use a human-like speech. There's still more to learn about them. So, how would I explain the other manifestations of magic? Conjuring ice out of thin air to explode and skewer enemies, or something more benign such as Foggy twirling her finger in the air, causing a ladle to mimic that motion, stirring the soup that she had made earlier? As far as I'm aware, this isn't an issue that is found in any Stoic writings. If I were to try and square the circle between the two systems, however, in the case of the latter, I might imagine some sort of phonemic resonance or mimicry between Foggy's finger and the ladle, causing it to move as if it were a primitive part of her own body, even when separated by the distance. In the case of the former, generating ice from thin air, I would assume it perhaps to be some sort of transmutation of already existing pneuma. As I've mentioned, to the Stoics, pneuma is found everywhere in the universe in one form or another and composes of various elements. If the Stoics hold that air is an element and is physical in nature, which I'm certain they do for reasons that are outside this video, then turning air into ice could be seen as changing one form of pneuma into another. It is worth noting that air and code often shared associations to the Stoics, so perhaps ice could be seen as the manipulation of code as opposed to the manipulation of water. These ideas might be supported or disproven as I make more progress in Roadwarden, but I thought it would be fun and informative to make a short video about the similarities that stuck out to me at first blush. Likewise, there is not anything resembling a one-to-one similarity between the two systems that I can see, but I still found it interesting. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.